The Cell Games. Talk about a pivotal moment in Dragon Ball Z. It was a desperate, last-ditch battle for the very fate of the Earth. But what if a brand new player stepped into that arena? A warrior from a totally different world, one who commands an army of the dead and wields a power that isn't Ki, but something else entirely. What if Sung Jinwoo, the Shadow Monarch, showed up during the Cell Games? Would the Z-Fighters find a shocking new ally, or would they be facing a threat that was way more terrifying than Perfect Cell? Let's dive into this alternate timeline. The air across the Rocky Plateau was thick with a bizarre mix of worldwide panic and a weird, carnival-like atmosphere. News cameras from every network on the planet were pointed at a checkered martial arts ring, a stage literally built for the end of the world. In the center stood Perfect Cell, a being of terrifying power, radiating an arrogance so intense you could almost feel it. He was a walking, talking cocktail of the universe's greatest fighters, and he absolutely knew it. Across from him, the Z-Fighters stood as Earth's last line of defense, their faces a mix of grim focus and tension they could barely hide. Goku, always the calm eye of the storm, had just come out of the hyperbolic time chamber, his Super Saiyan form now a totally mastered, peaceful state. Vegeta's pride was simmering, a volcano just waiting for a reason to erupt. And Gohan, as powerful as he was, still had the hesitant heart of a scholar, not a killer. The tournament was ready to kick off. The entire world held its breath. And right there, in that shared moment of global silence, the breath before the plunge, reality tore itself open. It wasn't Ki. It wasn't instant transmission or any energy signature the Z-Fighters recognized. High above the ring, the sky didn't just get dark, it fractured. A jagged, violet-black tear ripped open, leaking an aura that just felt cold. It wasn't evil like Frieza or Cell. This was the deep, absolute cold of a starless void, an energy of pure finality. Piccolo's eyes shot wide, his Namekian senses reeling. What is that? It feels wrong. It's not Ki. Goku looked up, his normally relaxed face now etched with intense concentration. It's empty. Like a hole in the universe. But there's something in there. From that violet tear, a figure descended. He didn't fly with Ki, he just fell, with impossible control, landing silently on the barren ground 100 yards from the ring. He wore what looked like sleek black armor, almost like a second skin, with two short swords sheathed at his back. His hair was dark, his face was stone cold, but his eyes glowed with a soft, ethereal purple light. This was Sung Jinwoo. Cell, ever the gracious host of his own apocalypse, turned with a smirk. Well, looks like we have a late arrival. Another insect drawn to the flame? His eyes swept over the newcomer, his biosensors scrambling to get a reading. The result was just baffling. Nothing. No power level. No energy signature. It was like trying to measure the strength of a shadow, Vegeta scoffed. Oof. Another worthless spectator. He has no readable power. He's even weaker than Hercule, but Jinwoo was no spectator. The second his feet touched the ground, his own senses, sharpened by countless dungeons and life or death fights, exploded with information. The world around him seemed to grind to a halt, a passive effect of his insane agility stat. He saw every fighter, every camera, every single pebble on the ground with crystal clarity. And the energies. They were staggering. The green android in the ring was a lighthouse of evil power, way beyond any monarch he'd ever faced. The man in the orange GI, Goku, felt like a calm, controlled sun. The spiky-haired one, Vegeta, was a raging star. To Jinwoo's system-trained mind, he hadn't just stumbled into a martial arts tournament, he had walked into a den of raid bosses. A cold, practical thought cut through his mind. This world is dangerous. But the rewards could be limitless. He didn't announce himself. He didn't shout a challenge. Instead, he just activated one of his most basic skills, stealth. In an instant, his physical and spiritual presence blinked out of existence. To the Z-Fighters and Cell, it was as if the strange man had never even been there. He's gone. Krillin yelled, his eyes darting around. Did he run away? Yamcha added, a little too relieved. Vegeta sneered. The coward realized he was out of his league. Only Goku and Piccolo still looked uneasy. The feeling of that void-like energy was still there, a chilling aftertaste they couldn't quite shake. But with Cell tapping his foot impatiently in the ring, there was no time to waste on mysteries. The Cell games were about to start, and none of them knew that a Shadow Monarch was now watching from the darkness, analyzing. Learning and waiting, the Cell games opened with the joke of Hercule Satan's challenge, a display of loudmouthed confidence that Sung Jinwoo, watching from the total invisibility of his stealth, dismissed without a second thought. He'd seen countless weaklings boast before they were slaughtered in dungeons. This was no different. He was way more interested in the real fighters, the ones whose power levels dwarfed anything he had ever sensed. Then, the main event started. Goku stepped into the ring. The moment he powered up, even in his mastered Super Saiyan state, Jinwoo felt a tremor in his very soul. The sheer density and output of this key energy was something new, a power system totally alien to the mana he was used to. He watched, his senses processing the fight so fast it all looked like it was in slow motion. He saw Goku's instant Kamehameha, the way he bent space to attack from behind. A teleportation skill tied to his energy blasts. Incredibly versatile, Jinwoo noted. He saw Cell counter, his movements seamless, his power off the charts, his regeneration knitting a blasted off arm back together in seconds. High-speed regeneration. Like a high-level magic beast, but seems more efficient. Maybe he has a core that needs to be destroyed? The fight was a spectacle of world-shattering power. Mountains crumbled from stray energy waves. The air itself vibrated with their strength. For Jinwoo, it was an invaluable chance to gather data. He analyzed their speed, their strength, their techniques. They were fast, no doubt about it, but his own perception, jacked up by his stats, let him track every single blow. Their raw destructive power was on a scale he'd only seen from the strongest monarchs, yet these guys seemed to unleash it so casually. Then came the moment that truly confused the Shadow Monarch. Goku, after an incredible fight, just gave up. He raised his hand, forfeited, and stepped out of the ring with a calm smile, naming his own son, Gohan, to fight next. Jinwoo was floored. In his world of constant, brutal struggle, that was unthinkable. Why would the strongest warrior just step aside? Why would he put that kind of pressure on a kid? No matter how much potential he had. He watched Gohan, a boy radiating immense hidden power but chained by fear and a gentle spirit. This whole philosophy was completely alien to him. Jinwoo's life was a non-stop fight for survival and power. There was no room for things like this. He didn't fight for sport or honor. He fought to win, to kill, and to rise. Cell, on the other hand, was thrilled. He saw Gohan's hesitation as a weakness to exploit, a new game to play. And this is where Cell's true nature, a sadism born from Dr. Gero's hate and Frieza's cruelty, came out. He started toying with Gohan, his attacks precise and painful, designed not to kill, but to torture. Jinwoo watched. His face a cold, impassive mask, but a knot tightened in his gut. He recognized this kind of evil. It was the same pointless, domineering cruelty he'd seen from the Monarch of White Flames and the Beast Monarch. The urge to make others suffer just for the fun of it. It was a cancer he had sworn to wipe out in his own world. Then, to liven up the game, Cell did something that would change this timeline forever. He arched his back and spit out 7 miniature, blue clones of himself, the Cell Juniors. They cackled with insane energy, their power levels unbelievably high, each one a nightmare for the already exhausted Z-fighters. "Go, my children," Cell announced. "Play with our friends. But don't kill them too quickly. Make them suffer." The Cell Juniors swarmed the field like a plague of demons, and the battle erupted into pure chaos. Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, even Vegeta and Trunks were getting completely overwhelmed. The creatures were vicious, fast, and relentlessly cruel. The sounds of the Z-fighters' pain filled the air. Jinwoo saw it all. He saw Piccolo shielding Gohan. He saw Trunks and Vegeta fighting back to back, their pride being ground into the dust. This wasn't a tournament anymore. It was a slaughter, and in this slaughter, Sung Jinwoo saw an opportunity. These Cell Juniors were powerful, malicious threats. But to the Shadow Monarch, they were also something else, potential soldiers. Raw material for his army. He had seen enough. The rules of this world were becoming clear, and the cruelty on display had crossed a line. Not a moral line, but a practical one. This level of chaos was inefficient, and it was time to intervene. His purpose was no longer just observation. It was acquisition. As the Z fighters were being systematically torn apart, Gohan's mind was starting to crack. He watched his friends and his father being tormented, his own true power locked away behind a wall of fear. Android 16 saw this and began his final, fateful walk toward the boy, ready to give the speech that would change everything, but he never got there, because at that moment, a figure stepped out of thin air right in the middle of the battlefield. Sung Jinwoo dropped his stealth. His sudden appearance was so jarring it brought the carnage to a dead stop. The Cell Juniors paused, their sadistic grins faltering. The Z fighters, beaten and bloody, just stared at the mysterious man who had vanished earlier. Cell, perched on a rock overlooking the mess, narrowed his eyes. "You again? I thought you ran. Did you come back to be executed?" Jinwoo ignored him. His glowing purple eyes swept over the battlefield, taking it all in. He looked at the 7 blue monsters, then at the fallen heroes. He took one slow, deliberate breath, and the temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. A pressure, cold and absolute, started radiating from him. It wasn't Ki. It felt ancient, hungry, and completely dominant. Then, he spoke. A single word, uttered with a quiet, unbreakable command that echoed not in their ears, but in their very souls. A word that was the foundation of his entire being, "Arise." The ground itself seemed to groan. Darkness bled out from Jinwoo's own shadow, pooling on the rocky terrain. And from that darkness, figures began to rise. First, a knight in jet-black armor with a tattered red plume, radiating immense loyalty. This was Igris. Then, a hulking, ant-like monster, its wings buzzing with predatory energy. This was Baru. They were followed by legions more, hundreds of shadow infantry, mages, and beasts, a silent, disciplined army of the dead, their eyes all glowing with the same purple light as their masters. The Z fighters stared in absolute horror. What? What is this? Krillin stammered, his brain failing to compute what he was seeing. Piccolo's jaw was slack. Necromancy. He's a necromancer. Vegeta's eyes were wide with a mix of disgust and a terrifying, primal curiosity. To command the dead. What kind of power was this? Cell was, for a moment, stunned into silence. His perfect smirk was finally gone, replaced by a look of sheer disbelief. An army of the dead? How completely absurd. The Cell Juniors, snapping out of their shock, let out gleeful cackles and charged, seeing the shadow soldiers as just new toys to break. It was their last mistake. Igris met the first Cell Junior head-on. The blue creature threw a wild punch, but the Shadow Knight deflected it with his sword, the movement perfectly efficient. Igris was a veteran of countless battles. He didn't have the raw, explosive power of a Cell Junior, but his technique was light years beyond it. Meanwhile, Baru, the former Ant King and a being of pure, savage speed, blitzed another Cell Junior before it could even react. Baru's claws sliced through its torso, not with a ki blast, but with sheer physical force and shadow-infused sharpness. The Cell Junior shrieked in shock as it struggled to regenerate the deep cuts. The rest of the Shadow Army engaged the other Cell Juniors, and it was a clash of total opposites. The Cell Juniors were chaos and raw power. Jinwoo's army was order and disciplined strategy. The Shadow Soldiers, the weaker one-on-one, fought as a perfect unit. Mages cast spells from the back while the infantry swarmed, their numbers seemingly endless. If a Shadow Soldier was blasted apart, it just dissolved into smoke, only to be resummoned from Jinwoo's shadow moments later, good as new. They were an unkillable, inexhaustible legion. Then, Jinwoo himself moved. He appeared in front of a Cell Junior that was wrestling with his soldiers. His speed wasn't the explosive burst of a Z fighter, it was a fluid, constant velocity that made him look like a ghost. He drew his daggers, the blades humming with dark energy. The Cell Junior turned and fired a ki blast point blank. Jinwoo sidestepped it so casually it was almost insulting. In the next instant, he was behind it, his daggers flashing. The blades plunged into the Cell Junior's back, not with brute force, but striking at vital points he'd already identified. The Cell Junior convulsed, its regeneration fighting against the shadow energy corrupting its wounds. It wasn't dead, but it was immobilized. Jinwoo placed a hand on its head. A chill deeper than any winter frost filled the air. "Arise," he commanded again, but this time, the word was aimed at a living creature. The Cell Jr. let out a horrific, soul-tearing scream. Its body flickered as black smoke poured from its mouth and eyes. Its very essence, its life force and power, was being forcibly ripped from its body. The Z-Fighters watched, paralyzed by the grotesque sight. This wasn't just killing. It was consumption. After a few agonizing seconds, the Cell Jr.'s body went limp and crumbled into dust. And from its place, a new shadow rose, a perfect, shadowy replica of a Cell Jr., its eyes burning with loyal purple light. It bowed its head to Jinwoo. A Shadow Cell Jr. had been born. And now, Jinwoo had the template. The remaining Cell Juniors weren't just opponents anymore. They were a harvest. The balance of the battle hadn't just shifted, it had been completely shattered. With his own regenerating army and the power to turn his enemies into even stronger soldiers, the Shadow Monarch had turned Cell's own game on its head. The Z-Fighters could only watch as this mysterious third party single-handedly neutralized a threat that had brought all of them to their knees. The question was no longer if he could help them. The question was, what would he ask for in return? Cell wasn't intrigued anymore. He was furious. The perfect stage he had built for his own glory was being hijacked by some parlor trick-wielding necromancer. The fear on the faces of the Z-Fighters and the worldwide audience was supposed to be for him. His magnificent Cell Juniors, defeated and conscripted? Unacceptable. Enough of this farce. Cell roared, his voice shaking the heavens. He vanished and reappeared right in front of Sung Jinwoo. His fist cocked back for a punch that could shatter a continent, but the punch never landed. Just as it was about to connect, it stopped dead in midair, inches from Jinwoo's impassive face. Cell's muscles strained, his golden aura flared, but he couldn't move an inch. It was like he'd hit an invisible, unbreakable wall. Jinwoo's hand was slightly raised, his fingers glowing with a faint blue aura. This was ruler's authority, the telekinetic power of a monarch, a force that acted on the world through sheer will, not ki. Cell stared in disbelief. What is this? Some kind of psychic power. With a casual flick of his wrist, Jinwoo sent Cell flying backward, slamming him into a distant mountain so hard it exploded into rubble. The Z-Fighters were speechless. Vegeta, in particular, was trembling not with fear, but with a maddening sense of his own powerlessness. He stopped Perfect Cell. With his mind, before Cell could even recover, Jinwoo pressed his advantage. He unleashed the full might of his spiritual presence. Bloodlust. It wasn't just to scare them, it was a targeted debuff, a wave of pure killing intent that attacked an enemy's mind. Everyone on the battlefield felt it. The Z-Fighters felt a primal terror grip them, their instincts screaming to run from a predator that was beyond their comprehension. Krillin and Yamcha literally collapsed to their knees. Even Goku and Vegeta felt a cold sweat. Their battle senses totally overwhelmed. For Cell, it was even worse. As the main target, the bloodlust status effect took hold. All stats of targets within range are reduced by 50%. Cell felt a sudden, bizarre weakness wash over him. His speed, his power, his will to fight, it all felt like it had been cut in half. For the first time in his perfect life, he felt a sliver of genuine fear. It was in this chaotic, fear-drenched environment that something finally snapped. Gohan, who had watched his friends being tortured, the arrival of the Monarch, and the humiliation of the invincible Cell, was pushed past his breaking point. Android 16, having recovered, finally stumbled towards him. Gohan. Let it go. It is not a sin to fight for the right cause. Protect the living things I loved. As he finished, Cell, in a fit of rage at being weakened, fired a small ki blast that obliterated 16's head. That was the final trigger. Cell's cruelty, 16's sacrifice, and the suffocating pressure of Jinwoo's aura finally shattered the dam inside Gohan's soul. With a scream that tore through the heavens, his golden aura erupted, crackling with furious white lightning. His hair stood on end, his eyes turned a cold, merciless teal. Gohan had ascended. He was now a Super Saiyan 2, the world was now held captive by a tense, three-way standoff. An enraged Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, a perfect Cell weakened and terrified by a power he couldn't understand. And Sung Jinwoo, the silent monarch, surrounded by his ever-growing legion of shadows, which now included 7 loyal Cell Juniors, Gohan, filled with righteous fury, moved first. He attacked Cell, and the fight was brutally one-sided. Cell, already at half power, stood zero chance. Gohan dismantled him, his attacks carrying a weight and viciousness that shocked even his father. Driven to utter desperation, Cell made his final, terrifying gamble. He began to inflate like a grotesque balloon. "If I'm going to be destroyed, I'll take this whole planet with me," he shrieked. Self-destruction. Goku's face went pale. He knew there was only one way. He looked at his son. "Gohan, you did well. I'm proud of you. Tell your mother. I'm sorry." He prepared to use instant transmission, but as he said his goodbyes, Sung Jinwoo acted. He was not a sentimental man. He saw a powerful warrior about to sacrifice himself, a pointless waste of a valuable asset. While Goku was locked in his emotional farewell, Jinwoo was already moving. His shadow stretched towards Cell, and with his shadow exchange ability, he instantly swapped places with a shadow soldier he had already placed high in the atmosphere. 1 second, Cell was on the ground, the next, he was 10 miles up in the empty sky. Goku paused, fingers still on his forehead, his face a mask of total confusion. Everyone watched as a brilliant, star-like explosion detonated harmlessly in the upper atmosphere. Goku was alive. The Earth was safe. The Z-Fighters just stared, their minds completely broken by the events of the last few minutes. This one being had rewritten every rule of combat they had ever known, but it wasn't over. From the fading light of the explosion, a single particle of Cell survived, his core intact. Thanks to his Saiyan cells, the near-death experience made him stronger than ever. Add in his new knowledge of instant transmission from Goku, and he reappeared on the battlefield, his body regenerated. Crackling with power that now matched Gohan's. Super Perfect Cell had arrived. "Did you miss me?" he hissed, and immediately fired a massive ki blast, not at Gohan, but straight at a stunned Vegeta. "Father!" Trunks screamed. Vegeta was frozen, knowing he was done for. But before the blast could hit him, a towering black shape materialized in its path. It was Igris, Jinwoo's loyal knight. The shadow took the full force of Super Perfect Cell's blast. There was a huge explosion, but when the smoke cleared, Igris was still standing, his armor cracked and his form flickering. He was damaged, but as a shadow sustained by his monarch's near-limitless mana, he was already regenerating. Gohan, enraged by the cheap shot, prepared for the final clash. He unleashed his own Kamehameha. Super Perfect Cell met it with a solar Kamehameha of his own. The two colossal beams met in a titanic struggle for the planet's survival. Goku's spirit appeared behind Gohan, encouraging him. "You can do it, Gohan. Let it all out." But this time, there was another player. Sung Jinwoo watched the beam struggle with cold, analytical eyes. He had no interest in a dramatic contest of wills. He preferred efficiency. While Cell was completely focused on Gohan, Jinwoo gave a silent command. From all sides, the Shadow Army attacked. The newly raised Shadow Cell Juniors, Igris, Baru, and hundreds of other soldiers swarmed Super Perfect Cell. They clawed at him, blasted him with their own shadowy energy, and threw themselves at his back. At the same time, Jinwoo focused his ruler's authority directly on Cell, a crushing telekinetic force squeezing the life out of him. Cell's concentration shattered. Overwhelmed by 1,000 enemies and an invisible force crushing his body, his Kamehameha faltered for just a split second. That was all the opening Gohan needed. With a final, triumphant roar, Gohan's beam consumed Cell's, engulfing the bio-android completely. His screams were lost in the torrent of energy until there was nothing left. Not one cell remained. The Cell games were, finally, over. The silence that fell over the battlefield was heavy. The dust settled on a landscape scarred beyond recognition. Cell was gone. The threat was over. But the victory felt strange. Unsettling. Goku was alive, standing next to an exhausted Gohan. The other Z-Fighters slowly picked themselves up, their bodies bruised and their minds reeling. They had won. But they all knew they hadn't done it alone. all eyes turned to the lone figure standing in the middle of the devastation. Sung Jinwoo stood perfectly still, his glowing purple eyes scanning the scene. Around him, his army remained a silent, black legion. Igris, Baru, and most chillingly, 7 perfect, shadowy replicas of the Cell Juniors, stood at attention. He hadn't just beaten their enemies. He had added their power to his own. Goku, ever the simple-hearted warrior, took a step forward, a look of pure awe on his face. Wow! I've never seen anything like that. Your energy is so strange, and that army. You're incredibly strong. We have to fight sometime. Vegeta, however, was a storm of conflicting emotions. He was humiliated. A threat that he, the prince of all Saiyans, couldn't handle was dispatched with ease by this thing. He was disgusted by necromancy, yet a dark, insidious part of him was captivated by its absolute effectiveness. An army that can't die, that steals the strength of your enemies. The potential was terrifyingly tempting. What are you? He snarled. Piccolo regarded Jinwoo with deep suspicion. To a guardian who understands the natural order, this man's very existence was just wrong. You command the dead. You rip souls from their bodies. This is a power that disrupts the balance of life and death itself. Jinwoo offered no explanation. He didn't justify himself or give his name. He just looked at them, his expression impossible to read. To him, they weren't friends or allies. They were powerful beings in a world that was ripe for the taking or for protecting, if it proved worthy. They were potential rivals, or maybe, future soldiers for his army. He had assessed their power, understood their dynamics, and now, he held all the cards. Having made his position clear, Jinwoo turned his gaze from the Z-Fighters. There was nothing left to say. He'd made his statement not with words, but with overwhelming, undeniable power. He gave them one last, chilling look, a look that said, I am here now. This world is under my watch. Then, he simply dissolved backward into his own shadow and vanished without a trace. The heroes of Earth were left standing alone in the ruins of the Cell Games arena. They had their victory, but now they had the terrifying knowledge that a new, unpredictable monarch walked among them. And as the timeline split, the coming threat of Majin Buu wouldn't be facing the Z-Fighters they knew. It would be facing a world with a shadow monarch lurking in its darkness, a being who might see the ancient evil not as a threat to be destroyed, but as the ultimate prize to be conquered and added to his collection. The saga was far from over, it had just entered a much, much darker chapter.